Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting of the University City Council to order on October the 8th at 6:31 p.m. Ms. Reese, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Clay. Councilmember Hart. Councilmember Leland.
Here.
Councilmember Hills. Here. Councilmember Kusick. Here. Councilmember Smotherson. Here. Mayor Pro.
Here. Thank you very much. For the public's benefit, during the study session that occurred at 5:30 this evening, the agenda was amended only in an administrative capacity to move items number J1, 4, and 5 from the consent agenda, and now they will be listed on the city manager's report. That amendment has already been made. With that amendment being made, is there approval to the agenda as amended? Mr. Smotherson, the second by Mr. Hales. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much. Briefly, before we move forward with the rest of the meeting, I think it would be appropriate at this point in time for me to take just a moment and recognize the life of former Mayor Janet Majerus. Janet was the mayor of University City for quite some time. She passed away on Sunday, September the 30th at the age of 82. She got her BA in journalism from the University of Illinois. She then married Philip Majerus. They moved to St. Louis. During her time here, she wrote several novels, I believe 5, and the most famous of which was Grandpa and Frank, which was published in 1976, and then became a movie starring Henry Fonda. She was the first woman to be elected mayor of University City, and as her colleagues at that time said, she was dedicated to the values of her city. She insisted upon, when she first became mayor, to replace the tired and deteriorating signs that welcomed people as they came into University City, as she was embarrassed and felt that they all needed to be replaced. Her comment was that if we can't take care of those things that people see first as they enter into our city, how can we be recognized as a wonderful place to live and work? She first was elected to the city council and then was elected and re-elected to the mayor's office in 1986, 1990, and 1994. She resigned in 1995 when she married Dr. Robert Burke and moved to Maryland. During her time on the council, she led the Lionsgate Civic Plaza Restoration Committee that you can see right out the window. She also set a goal for increasing and expanding our recycling program that became a model for several other municipalities in St. Louis County. She courageously recognized the increasing drug problems within our community and called government, business, and school leaders from around the metropolitan area into these chambers to address it. Her efforts led to a major federal grant to fund a community partnership organization at University City, employee assistance programs with several of the businesses, and the DARE program that was then initiated in the University City schools. She also worked diligently to work on the equitable distribution of tax revenues within St. Louis County. I would like to offer on behalf of the council and I know on behalf of the residents of University City our sympathies to her husband, Robert Burke, and to her 4 children, Suzanne, David, Julie, and Mary Karen. And I have asked the city manager to work with our city staff to follow all of the appropriate protocols, but if in fact the protocols do allow, I'm asking that the flag at City Hall be lowered to have staff starting tomorrow morning, October the 9th, through sunset of October the 13th. We have no proclamations this evening. The body has before it the minutes of the September 24th regular session. Is there a motion that those minutes be approved? Motion by Ms. Carr, there is a second by Mr. McMahon. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. You have before you the September 24th study session with the subject matter being EMS transport. Is there a motion that they be approved? Motion by Mr. Hales, second by Mr. Clay. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Mr. McMahon, you have an appointment.
I'd like to appoint Eleanor Mullen and nominate her to the Arts and Letters Commission to fill in for Myra Vanderstaal's unexpired term. Hopefully she'll continue on even after that term comes to an end real quickly here. And I'd also like it this time to thank Suzanne Greenwald, if she found her show, get Mullen to volunteer for the commission.
We have a motion for Eleanor Mullen. Is there a second? Ms. Carr, any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Swearing in this evening for Henry Slade. We will move forward. We have we've now come to the first section of our citizen participation. This is limited to 15 minutes to non-agenda items. We ask that you give your name and address, and that each member is then limited to 5 minutes. The first speaker for the evening is Aaron Ginsberg.
Hi, Mayor and City Council. My name is Aaron Ginsberg. I live at 430 West Point Court. And the first thing I want to say, actually in responding to Marianne Coley, is that the only person I represent is myself, and the views I state are my own. Next. Hi, Tom. Tom, I'm still waiting for you to answer my questions from last August. Who was paying you to campaign against your city's redevelopment? There are hundreds of other TIFs in our area, but you're only working against one. I'd like to know why. And to end on a positive note, I would like to thank everyone who worked on your city's successful SAFER grant. This funding will help fully staff our firehouses and reestablish mutual aid with our neighboring communities. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Our next request to speak is Morton Hyman. You can turn on the microphone, please, bottom center button.
Hi, my name is Morton Hyman at 739 Harvard. I'm one of the trustees in University Heights. I'd just like to say that to the city manager, the mayor, and the council, for the last 6 months, you've done remarkable work, and we appreciate it. We've seen real progress. We like the attitude. It's not going to all happen in a moment, but we really have seen the positive moves that you have made, and we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next citizen who's requested to speak is Tom Sullivan.
Tom Sullivan, 751 Syracuse. I have a few things to mention this evening. First, it's good to see on the agenda that a mature and respectable person is being appointed to the City Commission, rather than a City Hall groupie who acts like she's one step away from the loony bin. Last week, I made another complaint about the city for violating the Sunshine Law when appointing Jeff Ailes as council. It will be investigated by the Attorney General's office. As I pointed out in my complaint, University City is no doubt one of the worst violators of the Sunshine Law in the state. Next will be complaints to the Disciplinary Commission against members of the Missouri Bar who took part in the meeting. I wouldn't say that you got much of a defense, especially when it was pointed out ahead of time that the agenda did not conform to the law. Also, recently came out, Mr. Crow, that you caused a member of the University City Human Relations Commission to resign at future meetings of the commission to be suspended after you made a phone call to the commission member. You have no authority over the commission. It's supposed to be independent. The big problem with the commission is going to do its job, conduct a survey about a community benefits agreement in regard to the proposed Olive 170 development. Of course, the big fear is that we have found citizens supported the agreement. Similarly, the reasons to never put the Olive 170 development to a vote is because it would be overwhelmingly defeated. Except for the City Hall groupies, there is really not much support for the proposal. Maybe a survey survey had already been taken and you found this out. The situation with the Human Relations Committee continues with the harassment, intimidation, and bullying of anyone who does not follow the City Hall line on what could be the biggest mistake in University City's history. Anyone expressing a contrary opinion is attacked. This is from a news account about a minister who supported the Community Benefits Agreement. Since he spoke in favor of the CBA at the neighborhood meeting 2 weeks ago, he said he has been personally attacked by supporters of the development, calling the process, quote, a wholly uncivil affair, in a statement on his church's website. His letter continued, I have had my motives and my integrity questioned in person, over the phone, and online by advocates of the Olive Project. I regret the whole environment of distrust, anger, and point scoring which has come to characterize our public lives in University City. We are choosing to engage in the biggest economic decision our city will make in a generation. In quite an understatement, he said, people don't trust this process. It is you, Mr. Crow, and others over here who have been harassing and attacking citizens, or causing them to be harassed and attacked, because they have expressed a different view. Even the clergy has been attacked. Who would have thought the University City would ever come to this? This whole process surrounding the proposed Olive 170 development has been corrupt and continues to be so. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Our next request to speak is Karen Cameron.
My name is Karen Cameron, and I live at 1455 West Main Drive, Chesterfield, Missouri, 63017. And first off, I just want to thank all of you guys for allowing me to speak, even though I'm not a resident of University City. I'm here to talk about the TIF, affecting Olive. When I heard about it, I was absolutely devastated. My parents immigrated from Vietnam over to the United States. So I'm first generation here. And we have been shopping in that Chinatown area my entire life. That's where our entire family goes to celebrate weddings and my 30th birthday, for instance. So it's a huge part of our life, and all my friends shop there, all my family shop there. So it's not just a loss to me personally. I feel that if you were to redevelop that area, you're also causing a loss to the entire city of St. Louis. This is a unique neighborhood, and I congratulate you guys on that, for creating a really unique place where everyone can come and enjoy Korean food, Japanese food, Vietnamese food, Chinese food, just all in one area, and you can't find that anywhere else in St. Louis. It's totally unique and totally irreplaceable. So when I found out you guys were going to redevelop it, I was just completely devastated. So my point is that it's just a really unique and irreplaceable community, and I hope that you guys will think differently about this TIF and keep it there. And then another thing I want to mention is from a study from Better Together, from their paper, Tax Increment Financing in the St. Louis area. What they found was two things. First, simple mathematics leads to the realization that there will be less room in the market for entrepreneurs and local shops. Second, it increases the likelihood that profits will leave the St. Louis area. Neither is a result that suggests a positive return on the public financing that some retail TIFs and projects enjoy. So when I look at the history of TIFs in St. Louis, there's varying success stories. Some TIFs are really successful, and other ones aren't, and they end up leaving the community with a giant hole in this empty parking lot, and that's something I would hate to see happen to University City. And we don't need another Costco. We already have two. We don't need any more Targets or Chipotle's and stuff like that. What you have now are these unique, one-of-a-kind restaurants, family-owned stores that you can't find anywhere else in the world or United States or Missouri. So it absolutely breaks my heart that you guys want to get rid of that and redevelop it. So I ask you to reconsider and think about all citizens of St. Louis, not just University City, because you are also taking that experience away from all of them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next request to speak is Amanda Hill.
group concerned with Asian American and Pacific Islander social issues. I am speaking on behalf of myself and several other APIJ students who express our concern about the 170 TIF plan and its future impact on the Olive Boulevard community. When I first moved to St. Louis, Olive Supermarket was the first place I went shopping with my parents. Stepping inside and seeing the Asian brands that we were so used to felt immediate relief and comfort after a week of stressful packing and tearful goodbyes. So you can see how Olive is a place where over 30% of Washington's student population, including myself, and many immigrant families find a sense of belonging and community. For residents, Olive is their family and home. Many of the businesses on Olive are small family businesses and restaurants that attract visitors to University City. If the TIF plan were to carry through as it is now, the major construction on Olive Boulevard would severely obstruct access to these businesses, making it extremely difficult for customers and businesses themselves to function. The businesses that lay west of McKnight would be encouraged, if not forced, to move with little financial support as their main source of income is cut off for years. The council has said that this isn't the case, that the new TIF plan would prioritize existing businesses and, if necessary, help them relocate. But how will the council ensure this aid when they haven't even provided translators during their previous hearing? How will the council address the language barriers and not only increase transparency, but ensure that each and every one of these businesses understand the plan and their rights? We ask that the council consider the needs and livelihood of all of the people that they represent. With the upcoming Amazon warehouse, the Costco is substitutable, but Olive Boulevard is built by family and community, and that is irreplaceable. Thank you. And I request that these be added to the meeting.
Thank you very much. That concludes this section of citizen participation. Mr. Hales.
Thank you, Mayor. With your permission, I'd like to respond to a couple of comments. First, to Karen and Amanda, thank you both for speaking. I had the opportunity to speak to several business owners on Olive during the TIF hearing process. And during that hearing, in fact, at one of the meetings, we heard from one business owner on Olive, well east, who had been told explicitly that his business was going to be taken, that this was going to affect him directly, and that it was going to be torn down and redeveloped. And we've had students come here in the past, and I want you to know that I'm happy to talk to any WashU students, anyone who feels connected, especially if you're living around WashU or going to WashU, which is very much focused on the first ward where I represent. But I also want to make clear that this redevelopment is between McKnight and 170. One of the business owners told me, he was actually east of Pennsylvania on Olive, that someone came in and told him that Olive was going to be completely shut down between 170 and McKnight. I'm pretty sure that the city manager can sit here tonight and tell you that that is absolutely not the case. Olive is such a major artery. It's a state highway. It will not be shut down. Will there be some lane closures periodically? I expect there will be. We're seeing that right now with the Centene construction plate. So I thank you for your comments. I thank you for your concerns. And I invite you to reach out to me or my colleagues on the council with any future concerns. One other comment with respect to the Human Relations Commission. The Human Relations Commission meeting I listened to just the other day, and yes, they prepared a survey, and what struck me having listened to the meeting is at no point in the meeting was there any discussion by the commission about community benefits agreement. They seemed to reach consensus on asking 3 questions of residents on a survey that were, please name 3 concerns, and then 3 questions of suggestions of how the additional $15 million of TIF money would be reinvested into the third ward along all of the businesses. I don't know what happened, but that is not the survey that was presented. So the survey that was presented was not something that was, let alone what the council thinks, it was not approved by that commission. And that is very concerning to me. I know we've had a lot of conversations about commissions and process. That is something I think we need to look at. I know that the commissioners are all very good, very well-intentioned volunteers. I'm not sure how this happened, and I hope that we can figure out how to do it. Thank you.
Ms. Carter.
Thank you, Mayor Pearl, and also to the same women who spoke. If you had attended the TIF Commission, and I hope you did, meetings, the hearings, you would have heard our city manager say that we want to keep all businesses and that we have plans to do so. So we are not shutting down anything. We are not destroying anything. But we are one of the few communities that has made no improvements to Olive in 20 years and almost 50 years. So if you drive down Olive, what you'll see is a time warp. Way before your time, I know, but certainly within my time. So that as you come from Chesterfield, where you live, every community you go through peels back a decade until you get here, and it's the 40s and 50s. And we need some infrastructure upgrade, and we need some other, but we want to keep all of our businesses in our, let me call it, international district, because it is the home of so many international international businesses. The second issue I would like to address is actually the one that Mr. Sullivan brought up about we have no authority to address the commission. I beg to differ. That commission and many commissions are advisory to the council. They do not exist independent of the council, and each one of those commissioners is appointed by the council members and approved by the entire council. So I've heard a lot of misinformation going forward, but I think it's important that everyone realize that while we seek and respect the recommendations from the commission, we still have the right to disagree with those as a body, not necessarily as an individual. So, ladies, I would be happy to talk to you anytime. I'm the representative from Ward 2, and many people live in Parkview Gardens and in the Loop and surrounding areas. So, Mr. Cusick and myself would be happy to answer any of your questions, should you have any. And I hope that the dialogue will be ongoing, because we want to keep those businesses in University City, and we'd like to invite more to come.
Thank you very much. Let's move forward now with the consent agenda. You have before you on the consent agenda 2 items, which would be J2, J3, leaf collection contract and road salt contract. Welcome a motion. Mr. Hale, seconded by Ms. Carr. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much. We now will move to the city manager's report, where we will start with, I believe, the SAFER grant, which was item number J1, and I believe we had members of the body who had questions.
Eric Ruff, I could just introduce. This item asks council to consider the acceptance and approval of the staffing for adequate fire emergency response, or SAFER grant. Acceptance of the grant will result in no reduction in force for the hired personnel in the fire department over the term of the grant. The total amount of the grant is $3,104,424, with a required match of $1,190,029 of non-federal funds. The federal share is $1,915,395 of the approved total project cost of $3,104,424. I am recommending council acceptance and approval of the same, and would be happy to respond to any questions.
Thank you. We need, before we have a discussion of this, we need a motion for the SAFER grant. Motion by Ms. Carr, second by Mr. Hales. I believe the first question comes from
turn it over to Stacy Clay, Councilman
Mr. Clay.
Thank you. Thank you, City Manager Rose. Had a couple of questions regarding the SAFER grant. Wanted to understand a little bit about the timing of the grant versus the contract with Gateway. It's my understanding that we will be bringing folks on largely in the first quarter of next year. Let me check that assumption first.
As I understand it, and Chief Henson is here, and I'll ask him to come to the podium, we have 180 days from the time that the grant is accepted to hire the firefighters, paramedics.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay, so largely within the first quarter of next year. You still have, still in also the gateway contract as well.
Honorable Councilman Clayton, one of the things I'd like to advise the mayor and council on is the grant where it will certainly enable us, you as a city, to bring the transport back to the city, so doing that in-house. The main purpose was not for that. The main purpose for the grant was trying to bring the fire department up to full strength. And so I'd ask Chief Henson to kind of highlight the number of staff members, firefighter paramedics that should be at the scene, but by no means was certainly bringing transport back in-house was a factor, but not the only factor. So I would like for him to express kind of what that means as it relates to the number of firefighter paramedics that we actually should have on staff today.
Thank you. According to NFPA regulations, National Fire Protection Association 1710, which regulates the organization and deployment of fire suppression operations by career fire departments. Fire company staffing requirements shall be based on the minimum level necessary for safe, effective, and efficient emergency operations. A fire company whose primary functions are to pump, deliver water, perform basic firefighting at fires, including search and rescue, shall be known as an engine company. These companies shall be staffed with a minimum of 4 per truck on duty. We are attempting to do that as much as we can. This grant would enable us to do that. Again, like you said, the EMS portion of it is a bonus to the personnel that we'll have for these, because with the ambulance running with the engine company, they're part of the responding engine company. Part of this NFPA, sorry, my pages here, the 1710 requires a career fire department with an aerial truck to have an assembly of 15 people with a response time to the scene of an alarm of less than 8 minutes 90% of the time. These are numbers taken straight from the NFPA. They're not out of my head or any other. It's fact on paper nationwide. So with this, this SAFER grant enables us to meet these standards probably more than 90% of the time. Just a quick note here, so I can get to it. What they consider a single-family dwelling is a 2,000 square foot, 2-story single-family dwelling with a basement, without a basement, and with no exposures, which means nothing around it to catch fire. Just that house must provide a minimum of 14 members, 15 with an aerial device unit. Must provide. They say 90% of the time there should be 15 people there within 8 minutes. Now we do use mutual aid. Mutual aid comes in and helps us out. But to meet the 8-minute requirement, just on a regular house fire, we have to have more people than what we have now responding to a call. An open air strip mall. We had one on the west end of town one time. It requires a minimum of 27 members in that same response protocol, which again, with a commercial structure, we call for more mutual aid. But even calling for more mutual aid, that requires us to have more manpower, or we're going to be pulling more trucks in from the outside, which outside that direct line of mutual aid area is going to take us way outside that 8-minute mark. Now, these are standards on which the fire department is judged if anything goes wrong. And not only, since this fire department is part of the city is judged on whether they were proactive or reactive on incidents that happen in this town.
Honorable Mayor, Councilmember, I'd like to expand on what Chief Henson has indicated. Certainly, I believe just through conversations that there is a consensus on the council we will need to go through a training process. Many of our firefighter paramedics that are on board today have never worked on an ambulance. So I've asked Chief Instant to work with his staff in putting together a transitional paper that we can provide and update you so that you will know step by step how we intend to make this transition. Our focus, our intention is to work with Gateway Ambulance on this process. Their current agreement, as I understand it, expires in August of 2020. So that's a little under 2 years before that termination will occur. I would suspect that our transition period may take 18 months before we can train, bring on board all the equipment that's needed, train the firefighter paramedics, and get to a point where we could actually take that over. So what we are effectively talking about is about a 6-month period where the contract may or may not be in effect at that time. And so I stated during the presentation a couple of weeks ago of my intention to reach out to Gateway to start those conversations. We've talked with them a couple of times, nothing formal, about the fact that I believe there is a consensus by the council to do this, bring back transport internally. But I have not opened up formal discussions at that point. But since the last meeting, my intention, I stated it during the presentation, was to start those formal discussions.
Thank you, Mr. Clay. Do you have more questions? Just to right, this item has been covered extensively in the study session, and this item is to approve the contract. So I realize we're going to have questions, but a lot of this information, as the Chief just gave, is all information that we heard last time around. So thank you for doing that again.
Just so I'm clear, procuring the SAFER grant is about bringing the number of firefighters up to where they should be, irrespective of what happens with bringing ambulance service in-house.
It is to bring us up to the national standards, the minimum requirements required by the National Fire Protection Association.
Ms. Carr?
Thank you, Mayor Crowe. Many of you were not sitting up here when we went through the 2016-2017 budget. But for those of you that do, and for those that were sitting out in the audience, there was an attempt to eliminate 5 firefighter positions at the time. And it is my understanding that they were never filled. Is that correct?
Chief Instant, do you have an answer on that?
Yes, I can tell you, I started here 25 years ago. We were a department of 15 per crew with 4 office positions, actually 5 office positions, county secretary. Your whole department now, so that was 49, so your whole department now is 33.
Thank you. So this is really as much about the hiring. Those positions, by the way, were never eliminated. So, or if they were, it was to correct, in my opinion, a Scribner's mistake, meaning that they were eliminated not by this council, who is the only body that has the authority to eliminate the positions, not the personnel, but the positions. And so I wholeheartedly support bringing the staff back up to the levels previous to what I call the gutting of staff levels.
Any other members of council? Seeing no lights, we have one. I believe we just have one request to speak. If I've forgotten anybody else, please let me know. But Evan Clarke. Thanks, Chief. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Edward McCarthy, 7101 Princeton Avenue. I would just like to state right from the beginning, number one, I'm against taking the SAFER grant. It's for 3 years. The cost that we're going to incur are going to continue for decades after that. I am really against hiring 12 to 14 additional people when we do not need them. Right now, the city manager has projected, I think it's $33,000, $230,000, $80,000 cost for these additional personnel being hired. But right now, our ambulance service and our EMS service cost us $0. There is no cost right now. So why would we increase our cost? I don't care if it's $1 or if it's $230,000. Why would we increase it when we have a service that's taking care of it now? Number 2 or number 5, whatever I'm on, I'm just going to tell you the SAFER grant is not here to hire people. The SAFER grant is to make University City a better, safer place to live, not just to hire people. I would like you, if you do take the SAFER grant, that you turn around and you use it to supplement Gateway, that you do not hire the 14 people or the 12 people, that you turn around and supplement their service, buy better equipment, whatever is needed, but keep it the way that the service is being provided now. And this $800,000 in collections that they're talking about it's not going to happen. You know as well as I do, as soon as I say government provided, that means free. And people will not pay the amount. It's just not going to happen. So these numbers that you're given are going to be a lot higher than this. And then I would like to just bring up once again, you still haven't given the pension plan any more money, but we're willing to spend this money to turn around and hire additional people and incur additional costs, but I haven't received, and I say I'm talking about the pension board, still hasn't received any additional funding. So I think you're just incurring additional costs for no reason whatsoever. The other thing is, I just want to remind you, or just kind of bring this up right now, I talked to Gateway today, and they plan on fulfilling their entire contract. So if anybody brings up this stupidity that they're just going to skip out when we bring in the SAFER grant and some additional people, it's not going to happen. They want their entire contract fulfilled. And I think they're doing an excellent job. Otherwise, we would be hearing about it in the news. I guess the other thing is that the captain, the fire department, anybody else can say anything that they want. But back 10, 25, 30 years ago, University City used to have 50,000, 60,000 people. Now we have 35,000. So we've decreased the population. I hope we would also decrease our fire department and reduce our personnel. And I'm going to stop there for right now. So, thank you very much.
Going forward, it would be appreciated if the speakers actually have their sheets in prior to the agenda item coming forward. Thank you. Mr. Pace?
Gregory Pace, 7171 Westmoreland. Speaking rebuttal. First of all, NFPA is not a regulation that we're tied to, not state law, federal law, local law, county law. It's essentially a standard, would be more. It's a suggestion. First of all, and in NFPA 1710, a minimum, a truck company is 3, not 4, like the chief said. Full company is 4, but 3 is allowed. I even discussed that with Kurt Becker years ago, and I read it more than one time. This idea of 15 bodies on a residential fire in 1710, as the chief said, even with adding 4 firefighters per shift, we can't meet. We'll have 15 on shift, but we have a 20% absentee rate, so typically we have 12 firefighters. So we have to have at least 1 truck mutual aid respond to meet the 15. We border 6 fire agencies, City of St. Louis, Clayton, Olivet, Ladue, Community, what's the other, the county, mid-county or whatever. So we have 6 agencies that we border. All we need is, with the complement that we have now, is 2 trucks to show up, and we have that 15. And we've been doing that. The other idea that we can't meet 4 on a truck daily, well, that's, Adam Long addressed you guys, I told you, that's why we have 2 floaters now. We have 11 on a shift. The battalion chief doesn't sit on the truck, but the other 10 do, the captains and the firefighters, the privates. We have 8 seats, 2 trucks, that's 8, so we have 2 floaters. So that covers, and in fact this was explained by Chief Adam Long, that now we, on very few days, do we not have the full complement on both our trucks. So that's a misnomer, that's not true. And as Ed said, Gateway has no intention of not fulfilling their contract. And in this change that we heard tonight, how that really the reason that we're hiring these is to meet the NFPA 1710. That's not how it was sold in the beginning. I can go back to the audio and I can send it all to you in minutes. And it was sold to bring the EMS back in-house. That's how it was. So, you know, the goalposts move or whatever, you know, we want to do it really as the council and city manager. So we don't need, and I would challenge, ask the chief to find any other municipal fire department in St. Louis County that meets NFP 1710 for, you know, residential fire gets 15 bodies on it. Nobody, we all depend on mutual aid. That's the whole point of mutual aid. It's not for any of the fire department to staff it themselves. And the chief knows this. And the idea that we can't get 2 trucks to a fire, we've been assuming that we can do that for years. So now all of a sudden you guys are going to put us in a hole, you're going to keep this safer grant. I sent you an email, and we're going to pay for it, and these guys are sitting around doing nothing. So, you know, good luck defending that next time you all run. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to say, just on behalf of myself, that I find it surprising that when you come to the microphone and say we're doing anything all of a sudden. I think we've sort of worked through this in a methodical way versus the decision that was made to outsource, which was a very knee-jerk reaction. That was a political decision that was done completely against the wishes of the vast majority of the citizens that we represent. And I think that the elections that have occurred since that time have warned me to be true on that very subject. So while I respect the folks who are defending the decision that they made and that they participated in, that some of us were given at the very last minute prior to a vote to be taken, I would actually compliment the city staff and the fire department and this council on taking this in a professional and methodical way as we are addressing a wrong that should never have occurred in the first place. We have no other requests to speak. We have no other members of council to ask a question. We have before you a motion to approve the Safer Grant application. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. The next item we have is the annex study RFQ, which was item number J4, that is now moved to the city manager's report. Mr. Rose.
Mayor Crowley and council members, this item asks for authority to enter into negotiation with Travers and Associates for the analysis that needs to be performed on the city annex, as well as the potential of using Travers for the construction of a police substation. If I might, I would call Public Works Director Sinan Aplaslan forward to at least just highlight the process that we went through to arrive at this decision or recommendation. Thank you.
Good evening. The process that we went through for this consultant selection is a qualification-based selection. That is, we examined responses from qualified firms to our request for qualifications that was issued on August 1st, and it was due on August 30th. And within the process, we had a walkthrough of the facility. crowded. But of course, they were all, these teams, these groups all teamed up at the end. We received 4 submittals, and they are all qualified in one sense, but one was more qualified than others. In this examination, per the Missouri Little Brooks Act, we cannot ask for prizes. And so once the consultant is qualified, then with our city manager's authorization, we can enter into negotiations with this firm, the qualified firm, and we can only do it one at a time. And if we cannot agree on the price, then we have to stop the negotiations with that firm and then start it with the runner-up. And so the results are in your report, and Travers Associates with their vast experience in both historic renovations as well as justice, government buildings, and law enforcement type of construction, design and construction. The group that they proposed was the most qualified for our panel of examiners, in this case including our city manager, Mr. Rose.
Thank you very much. Prior to question, I would welcome a motion. Motion by Ms. Carr, is there a second? Second by Mr. Hales. Ms. Carr.
Thank you, Mayor Crowe. I don't understand what the Missouri Little Brooks Act is, so could somebody kind of inform us as to what it is and what criteria you're basically using, so that probably the last time we asked that question, but I didn't.
We normally do this for our public works projects, and there is an evaluation criteria that is included in the Act per the revised statutes of Missouri. What we need to use is 4 groups of qualifications. That is, one is experience and technical competence. The second one is capacity and capability. Experience and technical competence is really about what the firms are experienced and competent in doing per their declarations of their qualifications to us. We limited this to 5 pages, letters of intent. In this case, what we received from all these firms was that. And but there is, of course, always checking back this, cross-referencing this with what they submitted to us. The other area is capacity and capability. The firms in their submittals include their teams that they assign to the job and the qualifications of their team members. So we look at that in that other area. Past record performance is another area where we score, grade candidates. That is the past, pretty much it's in the name, but this is not only included to their work in University City. Of course, somebody might not have worked here before, but their past record still shows good performance. And familiarity and proximity to universities, another area of evaluation, another evaluation criterion, and that is that may go for more the consultant's previous work in this area or in the vicinity. On some of our public works projects under grants, we don't grade in that area because some of the public works projects are pretty standard everywhere and they follow national standards, regional standards, so they may have worked somewhere else in the region, but they would still be qualified in doing the work here. And so here on this examination, we used 30 points maximum for experience and technical competence, 25 points maximum for capacity and capability, 25 points maximum for past record of performance, and 20 points maximum for familiarity and proximity to University City. These maximum scores were agreed upon by all the members of the examining panel, and they total 100. And as a tiebreaker, we used in the order of these 1, 2, 3, 4 areas of criteria. If there was a tie, then whoever scored higher, number 1, would then prevail, or if they are equal, then number 2, and in such order.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Sponsor?
Thank you, Mayor Crowe. The question that I had is just asking, so with the cost, we won't know the cost until there's a negotiated agreement.
Correct.
And, okay. But do we have an estimate of what we are looking at? Meaning, do we have a ceiling that won't go above, or because we have an idea of what analysis are. I mean, we've had 2 done. I'm not saying that this is the same thing, but is there a ceiling that we're going to put on this?
Honorable Mayor, Councilmember Smothers, then that will be up to the mayor and council. We'll certainly make a recommendation to you based upon the lowest cost that we can receive from this qualified party, but ultimately you will make that decision regarding whether you want to establish a ceiling. I think it's as a part of the future recommendation that you will get, the focus will be on the consultant's ability to provide a outcome that has been thought through, that has not been steered in any way, and to demonstrate their abilities to make reasonable recommendations that can be defended from a quantitative basis. And so, I mean, that's some of the things that we will be taking a look at. And that's why I will share with you that as a part of the RFQ process, that you don't ask, what are you going to charge us? Because as long as it's a reasonable charge, the idea is that the experience, the expertise that the firm will have should outweigh their cost.
Okay, another question that I have, and I would make a comment about steering, because with steering, because this analysis is going to, or if it is in fact going to happen, it's kind of too late. And what I mean by that is that it was said that the other 2 analyses were steered, I guess, and so there's really no way to say that this won't be. There's really no way to do that. But that's fine. That's fine. What I do want to ask though is, in looking at this, why was the old library not included? And that's the building next to the annex. Why was that not included in this at all? Because what we're doing is just leaving that building for, and then I'm just kind of curious why that wasn't included.
Honorable Mayor, Councilmember Smothers, the project that was developed was specifically for 2 areas. If you recall, this is a part of the capital improvement program. That language was changed to reflect not only would we take a look at the construction of the substation, but also the analysis of the annex to determine what services should the mayor and council agree that a substation is reasonable to construct, what services would go there, what services could possibly remain here at City Hall, and whether it was feasible for the annex to be used for police operations in the future. As you are aware, the reason that the police department was located to the temporary area was because of a health safety reason. So that analysis will need to occur to determine, can it be safe for the people that would occupy that area. With regards to the, I believe you said the old library, Trinity building, also as a part of the capital improvement program is a second project called the space kind of use project. And that will encompass all of the current facilities, what's the best use. So as we begin to make modifications and upgrades to various facilities, we're doing that with purpose. So we will determine what the use is first and then schedule the improvements that will need to be made.
And I think my last question is on this subject is that this analysis, is this something that, is there a possibility that it shows that there is, the cost is too high, or that maybe the annex won't work for these services? Is it set in stone that this analysis is to make that work, or if there is, if we will accept the possibility that it may not work?
Honorable Mayor, Councilmember Smothers, the way that this was structured as when the RFQ was led was not to determine, not to give us the answers that the engineers believe we are seeking, but to tell us what are the facts. And that's the way that this project will progress. It will be based upon the best analysis that the engineering company can perform, but it will be an engineering company that has, if my recommendation is accepted, a strong experience with historical structures. So you know, I would indicate that the intention is for it not to be steered in any direction, it's simply to tell us what the facts are.
Okay. Mr. Cusick. Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple of questions. On the page J43 where it says consultant services required. My first question is, perform analysis of the City Hall Annex and future use of space as a police station facility. And I believe you said that this firm has experience in historic renovation and looking at the use of a building like that for government structures, including justice system. Do they take into consideration the specific needs of the police department?
Honorable Mayor, Councilmember Cusick, yes, the police department will, along with Public Works, will be sort of the customer that they will end up working with. One of the criteria that's important for the police department and for us all is that whatever structure they end up in will enable them to continue with their accreditation process. So that's just an example of something that I know is important and something that we will highlight with the engineering firm.
Thank you. Another question. It says here in number 2 that they will develop solutions to meet the current and future police department space and operational needs. Does this mean that they will be involved in assessing whether or not, 1, the annex could be used, and 2, if the annex could or could not be used, that we would also have to move to having a new building somewhere else or a substation?
Honorable Mayor, Councilmember Cusick, they will have that scope where we will use them for both the annex as well as for the construction of a substation. And the idea was that we could do those things simultaneous. Another item that will be coming up on your agenda will be asking you to extend the lease terms for the temporary facility because we know today that we have invested a significant amount of funds into that facility and that the user life for that facility still is significant. So as we are doing that, I think we will identify what funding is. We already identified about $6 million for the substation. So not just building that, but at the same time preparing ourselves for the long term, what other uses should remain here in the downtown area. And we had to do that simultaneously.
Thank you. And one final question. I understand you correct. You did say that there would be a second police substation somewhere else?
Honorable Mayor, Councilmember Cusick, included in the capital improvement program is about $6 million for the construction of a substation. No location has been identified at this point, but I would also note to you that I would not want the substation to be confused with a satellite facility. They're vastly different. The substation, $6 million in and of itself, indicates that it will be a substantial facility.
Thank you.
We've all members of the body had a chance to ask their questions. We have a motion and a second before us for the annex study RFQ. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. We'll now move to number 5, which is the mod space contract. Mr. Rose.
Honorable Mayor, Council members, this item asks Council for approval of an extension of the lease agreement for the units housing our police operations currently. And if I might invite up our City Attorney, John Mulligan, to highlight the terms of the agreement.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. As the council knows, we currently have a lease agreement with Modular Space Corporation, known as ModSpace. That was entered into in May of 2016 for the temporary police station there at 601 Trinity. That agreement expires October 15th, so a week from today. We've made all our monthly payments. The payments were very expensive the first 2 years because it basically included the construction, the installation, all the costs associated with that. Now that the bulk of that expense has been taken care of, the current lease arrangement allows the city to go month to month at $11,500 a month. So we continue to occupy it $11,500 a month. However, that month-to-month lease agreement may be terminated by either side on 30 days notice. So there's no security long-term that either side has. So with that in mind, there were negotiations that took place with ModSpace to extend it for various periods of time. The best rate that could be achieved was to lock in that 11.5 was for a 4-year period. So if council authorizes this, then this lease may be extended for 4 years at the monthly rate of $11,500. And then going beyond that, there would be an option to extend the lease agreement for an additional 3 years. The monthly rate would increase to $12,075 during that additional 3-year period. So that gives the city an opportunity to continue to be housed there for up to 7 years. We were able also to negotiate a 180-day cancellation clause in there, and there's no penalty provision. So that what that means is during the 4-year period, or if there's an option to renew after the 3-year extension period, the city may terminate by giving 180 days written notice, and so there will be no additional cost. The current lease agreement sets a tear down in return amount for the existing facility at $164,130. That assumed that was going to take place on or about October 15th of this year. If this extension is approved, that number then would be different. At the end of 4 years, it would be at whatever ModSpace's rate is at the time. I was told that their labor has been increasing over the years as well as their other costs they have. They don't know what the rate will be for
years from now, we indicated that we wanted to see a cap. We didn't want it open-ended. So they said, okay, we'll give you a cap of $210,086 at the end of the 4-year period for the tear down and removal. If the rate is less, then it would be less than that, but we should have a cap. And then at the end of the 7 years, if that extension is taken, the cap will be $244,553. So the terms of the original agreement remain the same. They're simply being extended for the city's option, I think, with 4 years and then another 3 with a 180-day termination.
Thank you. Is there a motion? No. Is there a motion for the body? By Ms. Carr, is there a second? Mr. Clay? Questions or discussion? Mr. Smotherson?
Well, I just wanted to make sure that we are all aware of what we're doing. And I think if anybody remembers a council meeting previously, probably about a couple of months ago, maybe 3 or 4 months ago, and I stated that I didn't like the direction that we're going in. And this is part of the reason why I don't like the direction that we're going in with this. And that is because here we are making an extension of renting these modules for additional costs that I just don't understand why we need. But we need it simply because we want to hold on to them and hold on for 4 years, 5 years, or whatever. And it shouldn't take that long for us to come up with a police station solution. So anyway, that was part of why I wanted to move this and have a discussion, because I really wanted people to understand what this was, what we were spending money on, what we're going to have, and incur additional cost on. So again, that's my issue and concern, and I really don't agree and don't like the direction that we're going in with this. So that's my point. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Smotherson. While I think we all have concerns about the financial terms, I think we also understand that this is, for lack of a better phrase, been a front-loaded contract, that now the amount per month is a much more manageable number, and that we realize that without this modular unit, our police have no place to go, and we are working through the process of what is the best option for them. I think probably all of us as council members would like to have had a shorter initial term with a larger lease extension, but I have a feeling that the other side of the contract did not want that, would be my guess. And so I think that's one of those challenges that we all have in our lease negotiations is between the two parties. Any other questions, Mr. Hales?
Yes, thank you. I would just like to respond. You know, as somebody who sat on that side for a number of years, many, many years, you know, we should not, I agree with Mr. Smotherson in this respect, we should not be in the position that we're in today. This is for clearly the majority of council, a result of policies that came before all of us. So I would agree, I would love for this to be moving faster. It should have been well underway years ago. And I think the most important thing from my perspective as we move through this is to get it right. I think had those who came before us gotten it right, we would be further along in this process than we are right now. So I appreciate your comments, but I think we have to remember kind of how we got here, and we're working through this as quickly and as responsibly as we can.
Thank you. You have a motion before the body to approve the MOS-based contract. Questions and discussion have occurred. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. The ayes have it. We'll now move forward with the Majerus Park and Playground Improvements contract. Mr. Rose.
Honorable Mayor, council members, this item asks council to consider improvements for Majerus Park, Phase 1. This project was advertised on August 30th of this year. There were 7 firms that bid. I am recommending that all-inclusive Brian Lyons and Jones be awarded Jervis Park Phase 1 contracts at the lowest and responsive bidders for their respective section of work for a total bid of $460,670.83. Mr. Sinani, do you have any comments to make on this item? That concludes my.
Thank you. There will be a motion to approve. Mr. Hale, seconded by Mr. Kusick. Discussion by council members for us to approve the Mazuris Playground Improvements contract. Hearing none, those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. It is indeed momentous that we're doing this right after Janet passed away. We have no unfinished business. We have some new bills to introduce. Who would like to introduce Bill 9365 for its first reading? Ms. Carr. Ms. Reese, would you please make the first reading?
An ordinance approving a purchase and sale agreement between the City of University City and VRE Fiber Optics Ventures LLC for property located at 601 Trinity.
Thank you very much. We now have bill number 9366. A motion to introduce. Mr. Smotherson. We have the first reading of bill number 9366.
An ordinance changing the name of Tamilton Avenue between Paramount Drive and Montreal Drive to Reverend Joe L. Middleton Lane.
Thank you very much. We do have a speaker for this item. Please note that to the speaker, the vote will not occur until the next council meeting. You are sure welcome to speak, though, tonight, but the vote occurs. The first reading is tonight, and then the second and third readings come in 2 weeks when the vote is actually taken. I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate your diligence, but is that okay?
Yes.
Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Reese, for reminding me. A member of the body would like to introduce bill number 9367. Ms. Carr.
An ordinance amending chapter 358 of the traffic code to revise traffic regulation as provided herein.
Thank you very much. We now move to council reports and business. Does anyone have any report from any commission that they would like to make to the body? Mr. McMahon.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm the liaison for CALIP, the Commission for Access and Local Original Programming, and they asked me to report back to you all about a new project that they authorized recently for $30,000 expenditure from their budget to create 3 to 5 minute long short videos. And one of the big changes from CALIP, usually their productions were longer in scope, documentaries that were really substantial movies, and this is more directed towards young folks, new people, faster, shorter, kind of thing we see on social media. So it's kind of a change in that direction. It's also a change in their direction, their focus, because instead of saying do what you want and we'll help you fund it, it's directed. These are directed grants, so the focus is going to be on University City and impacting that and helping to get out the good message about University City. So there's going to be a little bit more oversight on the subject matter, not that they're going to be controlling all the content, but they really want to give that out there. And so this is going to be directed not only at professionals, but also at young folks, students, college students, high school students, to make these 3 to 5 minute videos and then get them out onto social media. They've hired experts to help get that message out, to really do a good job. So I think they're going to help lead the way in showing you City how to use some of that social media with these 3 to 5 minute videos. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. McMahon. We now move to the other discussions in business requested by Mr. Smotherson and Mr. Clay regarding both and leaf pickup area designations.
Okay, I'll try to make this quick, but again, the reason I brought this up, and appreciate Councilman Clay for agreeing to have this put on the item, is that what this is about the designations for leaf pickup and the designations for ball pickup. It's different than the wards, and it's done by central, west, and east areas. And one of the things that I want to explain is that as a councilman, and even before I became a councilman, this has always been confusing to residents. It's always been confusing. You have residents that put stuff out a week before or a week after. It has never consistently answered the question for everybody, and this has always been a problem. And one thing that I want to understand is, and the reason I brought this up is because I want to find out why. I'm new, I've only been here 2 years. Why was this established this way when in fact we have a designation, and that is the wards, first, second, and third wards. We already have a natural designation. So again, that's the reason I brought this up. I wanted to have this addressed. And would hope if the reason isn't really valid or adequate enough, I'd like the council to have that changed so that there is some consistency. I think it's important to reinforce the wards that we live in and use those wards so that, again, there is no difference in leaf pickup, boat pickup in your ward. It would reinforce the wards that you live in. So, again, I'd like to find out exactly how this was established and why.
Mr. McMahon?
I'm looking at this and I'm concerned that changing leaf and trash pickup to match wards, I don't know if it's a solution that fixes the problem. Wards are designed with the basis of people voting and making sure that we're not going to, in the way we draw our ward lines, so that we disenfranchise any specific group. If you flip this on its head, you could say, well, why don't we make our wards in the same pattern as our leaf pickup? And I think there would be an argument to be made that that would be completely improper for voting if you think about the way our wards are drawn. And I would not even vote for something that would fit that, because I think you would disenfranchise some folks and you wouldn't get the same makeup and representation. Because the purpose of wards is political, it's voting, and we're going to be, if you think about it, in 2, almost 3 years, you may be redrawing your ward lines. It just happened at the last census and it will happen again. So you're going to have a whole bunch of folks that say, I'm in Ward 1, I'm in Ward 2, I'm in Ward 3, my leaf pickup was this time, my vote tried the last time, but now it's 2021 and now it changed. Where am I? We're going to have more confusion. There's always going to be confusion if you're near a line. Are you in it? Are you out of it? When's my pickup? When is it not going to happen? Moving the line doesn't fix confusion. If that's a problem, it's because we need to make sure people know where they are. Much like when I see people, when I was out at polling places, and someone would say, what ward do I live in? Well, if they don't know what ward they live in, how will they know if they're getting bulk trash because of a line? What I'd like to hear from is it seems to me that when you're drawing lines for trash pickup and leaf pickup, it's about the mechanics of the folks that do that job and how does it best make that service get to our residents. And if it fits because it's broken up in those sections for them to do their jobs and get the service to the residents the best way we can, then let's do it that way. Just to say it's confusing, well, any line's going to be confusing. Thanks.
Ms. Carr.
Thank you, Mayor Pearl. I actually feel very much the way that my colleague, Mr. McMahon, feels. What I don't want to hear is that, particularly in the western section, that section of University City has been Ward 2, later changed to Ward 1, and now parts of it changed to Ward 3. And I think that's what he was alluding to, that those lines get drawn. And so while those people north of Olive may be very clear that they live in Ward 3, it's also possible that at some point those lines can change too. What I don't really want to hear is someone saying that my ward doesn't get taken care of. I've heard too much of that. I believe, and it's just a supposition, that the leaf pickup is probably done geographically so that they can cover a certain area, and they have little concern for the politics of the area. who's doing what ward. So it just seems to be easy to move from east to the central, to the west, or back, wherever that is. If, for instance, you said we're going to pick up Ward 1, I don't know if you've actually looked at the Ward 1 map, but it really goes very far west, and I'm not sure that they could complete that in a week, or that people would even know. So I have another solution. That is that you and I inform our residents of when it is. I also believe that great big huge banners are put up in those areas notifying them. So maybe it's incumbent upon us. I actually think it's incumbent upon the people who have a question, what area do I live in, to call their council person, or better yet, even call the city and say, this is my address, what area do I live in, and then go to their calendar and mark it. I assume that everybody's an adult, and I might be wrong, but if there's any confusion, then I do believe that it's up to Councilmember Smotherson, Councilmember Cusick, Councilmember Hales, and so on, to let their constituents know that there is something happening. One of the things we never know, some of us have street cleaning 3 times a year. Some of us that live in Parkview Gardens get them once a month, and some people in the loop get them, I think, once a week. So we never know exactly when that's happening. I don't know. I can't tell my neighbors to please clear the streets. I know the private subdivisions give better notice because they're given better notice. So we do have lots of things to work on, but I kind of think that central to this is to ask the staff for the reasons that they set these collections the way they do, and possibly to have a study session. I think that's the best we can do. I think at this point I would be loath, because we did hear from one citizen who newly moved to this city and has not experienced it. I've been here for 33 years. And yes, over those years I've made a mistake, I've missed a week or whatever it is, but again, that's a communication problem. I don't know that we upend our Public Works Department to make it fit that. And again, for that section, in that western section that seems to float between wards, I always get asked, what ward am I in? And so, and that applies to Ward 2. A lot of people don't know what ward they're in. So I think while it's clear to us, because if you don't mind my taking a term from Washington, I'm trying to refrain from that. We're inside the Beltway. We know where the wards are. Other people don't. So I want to hear from Public Works Department about what they're doing, why they make that particular distinction. I mean, the city must work on a day-to-day basis for what works best in terms of delivering services, not for political purposes. So offhand, I'd say the geographical divisions make sense to me, as opposed to imposing a political division. But I can tell you that once you make that political decision, you're going to hear from some people saying, my ward never gets taken care of. And I hear that a lot. But for those of you that wonder, come walk some of the streets in Ward 2, and you'll see much of what you see in Ward 3. And just remember that I have a very large swath of Ward 2 that are private streets. Within Ward 2 is the largest private subdivision in the entire state of Missouri, as well as the University Heights #1, which is right over here, and there are a few others. So those streets, while they may look good, they look good because the trustees of those private subdivisions are taking care of them, not because the city is. So we all need attention. I don't think we want to create another problem, and I really want to hear from Public Works.
Thank you, Mr. Clay. Yeah, just quickly, I too just want to hear from the professional, because candidly, I was confused this last go around with the bulk pickup, and I had an odd man who was out there and not picked up, so I don't know where the confusion confusion, unlikely with me, but yeah, I just want to get the information on why it's set up this way, really. I'm just more curious as to what the rationale is. So I look forward to hearing from Public Works to understand why. And if it can be improved, let's strive to do so.
Thank you. Mr. Spudson?
Well, quickly, I just wanted to say that that's the reason I brought this up. I just do want to understand why it was set up this way. And never did I ever think of this being a political issue at all. Not at all. I just simply said that we've already got accepted awards, and I never thought this to be political at all. So thank you.
Mr. Hales? Thank you. I believe there is no discussion or vote on this. We appreciate having the opportunity to have this conversation. We have three members of the public left to speak. Remember, please give your name and address, and you are limited to 5 minutes. The next person to speak is Kevin Chaw.
Good evening, council members. My name is Kevin Chow, spelled C-H-A-U. I live at 615 Devonshire Avenue, St. Louis, Missouri. I originally came here to talk about TIF. While we're sitting here, this is my first time being here. Sitting here tonight, it sounds like you've inherited many things from the years, and you're all working your hardest as to doing what you think is best for the city. And I appreciate that. I've been in St. Louis since all my life, 27, and I've seen University City and the Olive District change since I've grown up. I heard things about a Costco being placed in, that rent being raised. It doesn't sound like anything's been decided yet. I personally am against TIFs after first hearing about it regarding the Walmart in West County, where Walmart simply moved down the street because the county next over gave them a bigger tip. And so I don't know if the empty shell of Walmart is still there anymore. I'm against TIFs, but to take a book out of Beth Comstock's new book, General Electric's president, I think. She talks about accepting change, because you're not going to be able to stop it. So I asked for that greater vision than what has been currently proposed, as I think the so-called Costco that I've seen is a little slightly short-sighted from the potential that a TIF was such as large as it is to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next request to speak is from Don McGee. I need your button at the bottom, center, please. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity to come before you again. I so appreciate it. I just wanted to follow up regarding my tree concerns, my infamous tree concerns. First of all, I do want to thank Mr. C9, the Director of Public Works, and also Mr. John Gates. I do appreciate them for being attentive to my concerns. When I come here, sometimes I feel like I'm being respectful. I was brought up that way, and I'm presenting my concerns appropriately and tactfully. But at times I didn't feel like I was being heard. So I'm so thankful for those gentlemen hearing my concerns and acting upon them. Their collaboration has allowed me to access my driveway. I closed on my first home on July 31st of this year. I was very proud. I'm a Youth City child. Don't mind telling my age. I'm a 3rd Ward child. I graduated from Pershing Elementary, matriculated through Brittany Woods. Also the high school. I'm a grad of Howard University in DC, as well as Dillard University in New Orleans. I love trees. We grew up with Avenue of the Oaks in Louisiana on my campus, and also I'm kind of a science geek. I have a degree in biology, so I know about the National Arboretum, and I'm a geek about the cherry blossoms that bloom mid-April in the nation's capital. They're a gift from the Japanese. I say all that to say I don't hate trees. I'm concerned about the just predicament
big sycamore at the base of my driveway. It's huge, and it's a concern. So I'm definitely grateful to be able to access my driveway. It's a highlight. My sister is now able to come in my driveway and not tease me about scraping the grid of her car. So that's a big plus. However, there's still a big, huge hump there. So I'm grateful, even though the asphalt that was placed there is a temporary fix, I am realistic to know that there's that root hump there. And it's huge, and that's the city's property. I would love to do my driveway. I would love to do that. I take pride in my yard. That is just I love my home, I love the yard. But I can't do that because that's the city's tree, that's their root. I research things. I know that there's a way to do that, but it would involve cutting that root. Copper sulfate, those things are hazardous to the tree, so I know I have to respect their property. So I'm constantly gathering branches. Thank you for that very, very gracious officer at the door. I greeted him and showed him my branches. I didn't want to cause anybody any alarm by bringing back the branches in here. So they're in the hallway in case you would like to see them as I exit, before I exit. So they're there because that's what falls off the tree. I showed Mr. Ewald. Those are large dry branches. They've been falling over the summer, and it's hardwood. He said, that's hardwood. I'm like, yes, Mr. Ewald, I get it. But the impact is the ground. The children are playing on their bikes, and I'm breaking my yard, and the impact concerns me. Many don't know I'm not a school teacher. I'm a physical therapist by profession. I've been doing so for the last 23 years. I'm licensed, and that's what I do. That's my craft. I know what head injuries have come from. I've seen several injuries from loggers. I've treated them. Freak accidents happen. Those trees falling are a hazard. I'm not looking for it to be one, but the reality is I've seen freak accidents. From highway patrolmen to children to things dropping on trees. I've treated those. In the 23 years I've done that. So it's a hazard. It's a safety issue. It's not the fact that it's just a big bulky tree. But when those things drop, I gather them and I'm in awe of the impact. And the tree is hanging and it's growing. So again, it's a liability issue. It's a safety issue. And also, the root is not going to start growing. It's going to cause a bigger issue. There are 3 huge cracks in my driveway now. And the canopy of the tree is huge. So I know it's because of the roots, because my water system is on the other side of the house. So that's a major concern. The discussion about a middle ground. There's been some discussion about a middle ground for both sides. I'm U City. I told you my story. You're U City. I'm not trying to be against you all. I'm not trying to come here complaining and nagging about things. But I'm concerned. What does the middle ground look like? I would love to have the tree down. Some say it's a beautiful sycamore tree. That's fine, but it's also something that's going to cost the city more money. It's going to cost in the long run. It's going to cost sooner than later. So, what's the middle ground? I would love to have the tree cut down. Would that cost me doing my driveway over? That's a big chunk of change, but I'm willing to take it on.
Your time has expired.
Yes, sir. May I please have a response from somebody? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next request to speak is Mr. Gary Burr.
Well, good evening. I'm Gary Burr from 750 Kingsland. I'm here, I'm president of the Commission on Arts and Letters of University City, and I'm here as the president of that to extend an invitation to mayor and council to 2 of our upcoming public events celebrating different facets of art in the community. Given that these are our first events, which most of you have taken office, we want to offer you this invitation in person. The first is our annual tradition of literary excellence award, which will be given to writer Gerald Early of Washington University at a special reception at 7 p.m. right here in the 5th floor. We will also be honoring at that time retiring children's librarian Rita Wright of the U City Public Library after 30-some years, as well as the journalism students of U City High School who were recognized last spring for their outstanding achievements in journalism. Secondly, on Wednesday, November 14th, we're going to have the annual Returning Artist program. It's going to culminate in a reception that evening thanking this year's artist musician, Jeffrey Anderson. Anderson's going to work with the students all that week in the school system, showing them the possibilities of pursuing the arts as a vocation. The reception will be at 7 p.m. in the high school crew library, and Anderson will talk about his experience working with the students that week at that time. We're also going to be sending you all personal printed invitations, and I hope to see you all at these events. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for serving on the Arts and Letters Commission. That concludes our citizen comments for the evening. Council comments. Mr. Cusick.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to direct my comments to the individuals, the young people that came out to speak about the international community along Olive and the TIF. And Mr. Chow, is that how it's pronounced? You said that you would hope that we would have a greater vision. We do have a greater vision. That's why we started the process with a TIF, so that we can develop and work with all the community in that area, all the businesses along Olive, as well as the residents and the homeowners of the 3rd Ward. We could have just said, let's build a Costco and that's it. We said, no, we need to have a better vision and a greater vision so that we can help develop the whole area. And that's what we've done with this TIF. It's not just about putting a Costco in there, but it's about being able to capture some of the tax dollars in that area so that we can help the homeowners in the 3rd Ward. Homeowners who have seen, Mr. Clay and Mr. Smothers have said time again, the valuation of the homes have not been rising and keeping steady with inflation like they have in the 2nd and the 1st Ward, as well as tax money set aside to help the existing businesses along Olive. We have been trying to develop Olive for many, many years. I think Mayor Crow has said that, has read letters of people that have gone back as early as the 1960s saying we need to be developing Olive. This is the first real chance that we have the ability to do something long-term to help the economic development of all of University City. We have to do something. We lose a lot of our tax revenue because Washington University buys properties in University City, and those properties are taken off the tax rolls, and that's tax income that we lose. So we have to do something, and that is a viable economic plan for all along Olive. So again, I want to thank you for your concerns and stick around because there's a lot of good things that are going to happen along Olive. And then I'd also like to say that I was honored to go to the Human Rights Campaign annual gala dinner at Union Station on Saturday, September 29th with Councilmember Hales, in which the Human Rights Campaign gave their Visibility Award to Mayor Crow, and would just like to say, once again, congratulations to Mayor Crow.
Thank you. Mr. Smothers.
Okay, and I'll try to be very quick with this. I've spoken a lot tonight. What I will first of all ask this council to give their consensus is, and I'll make this announcement, a former councilman, Arthur Sharp Jr. lost his wife, and I think it was Thursday night, and that was Miriam Sharp. And she was a very active woman in this community, especially in the 3rd Ward, especially with the Partridge Heights Neighborhood Association. And Mr. Sharp asked me today if I could do a proclamation. I know it's too late for the council to do a full proclamation and have that executed correctly, but I'm asking this consensus of this council if I could do a proclamation for my name, and it's up to you guys, and so that I can present it. The memorial service is 11 o'clock on Thursday of this week, and it will be at Washington Tabernacle, which is at the corner of Washington and Compton in the city. And again, because it's a late notice and the request for the proclamation, I'd ask for your permission to do an individual proclamation. And it's unofficial, but again, to present that Thursday at the memorial service.
I think the only thing that I would ask is that the city clerk, Ms. Reese, be involved, and she has the formatting and everything.
She does. She has that information. Yes, sir. And then there's one other thing, if I may. Then also, and lastly, I would like to address the WashU students and the people that spoke about the TIF information. And I really prefer that we not talk about it as the TIF, because the TIF is just a function of the development. We're involved in a development, bringing something to University City. But I want to put a twist to this. I want you to understand something. From the very beginning that Councilmember Carr and I brought this forward, this was never about eliminating anything. It was about a positive. Now, but let me throw a twist at you guys. My wife, who sits right here, we have relatives, I want you to understand this, in California and in Phoenix. Whenever they're in town, they fly in and they come visit the Asian restaurants in U-City on Olive. And they fly back with food from the Asian restaurants in U-City. And that's a fact. They do it so regularly that the airline people know, oh, you got food. And that's where it's coming from. So this was never about that. Understanding that we're talking about in the development area, probably 5 or 6 restaurants that are owned by Asian. The majority is east of Woodson and McKnight, and especially the Olive Supermarket. They're not involved in the development. So again, we would love to talk to you about this development and the greater vision that we have for Olive. Thank you.
Mr. Clay. Thank you, Mayor Crowe. Very quickly, a few things. First of all, October 16th, from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Community Center is a meeting for Third Ward residents and all U-Cityans regarding the redevelopment agreement. It's your opportunity to have input into what things the city should put up in the redevelopment agreement, so we hope folks can come out for that. October 27th is Make a Difference Day in University City, and City Manager Rose, again, I want to confirm folks should contact Marcia Mermelstein if they are interested in volunteering very quickly. Make a Difference Day is an opportunity for you citizens to help U-Cityans, particularly our senior residents, and doing some light maintenance of their homes. And so I would encourage folks to contact Marcia Mermelstein, who is shepherding that process. Hopefully we can have a significant turnout for that. One final thing I'll say, there were 2 conversations about our first responders in University City. And I want to acknowledge that last week there was a tragic death of a University City resident in a house fire. And certainly as we go through these deliberations about first responders, that kind of event resonates in my mind. Now, having said this, I know, having been on a similar dais in an earlier point in my life, we cannot make public policy based solely on individual circumstances. We know that is not a best practice. But at the same time, we cannot make policy that is devoid of consideration of individual circumstances. We know that as we contemplate what we will do with our first responder situation, be it ambulance, be it police, there will be significant dollars involved. And that point is not lost on me. And I think part of this process is a conversation with the community about its priorities. If we do certain things, we will likely be unable to afford other things. And that's part of the give and take in the process that we go through. And wherever we may land as individual council members, what I am gratified and confident in is that we will have a process that involves citizens in it. Again, we may come down in different places, but we will have a process that is transparent. So I just want to end with that and thank the council for continuing to have this conversation, and I look forward to more in the future.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll try to be brief as well. Looking at, and I know we accepted the SAFER grant, I think that's the right thing. I think we talked about that at the study session, that what we were going to get out of that, even if EMS numbers didn't work out, we were going to get pushing us more towards a full service public safety, and I thought that was a good thing. But what confuses me about the discussion of Gateway, and if they want to follow through with their contract to the end of the term, they may want to do that. I don't know. But we've got to make sure that they know that at the end of this period, we're not going to be looking at the same contract that was written the last time. There is no way, I think, this body, if we ever were faced with a situation where we had to stick with outsource because the fire council let our EMS infrastructure deteriorate to the point where we are in a hole, that we would follow the same contract we have now with no oversight. Last meeting we were here, I looked out that window to see if Gateway was staged where they're supposed to be. When I pulled in and I drove by there, they weren't. I went to Heman, there should have been one there, there wasn't. I came back to the meeting, looked out the window, Gateway's not there, they weren't there tonight. They can't even be where they're supposed to be. We don't even know if they're in the city, and I know Mr. Pace will shake his head at the back of the room, but that's okay. He can't tell me if there's 2 Gateway ambulances right in the city of University City at this very moment. He can't. The last time I drove from my house and I went by Ruth Park and I headed north into Overland, guess where I found a Gateway ambulance? Waiting in Overland at the city line with U City. Was that our ambulance? Kind of waiting on the line to see where he's going to pick somebody up. Is it in U City? Is it Overland? Because we're going to maximize profits. Nothing in the contract that will tell you what that's going to do. If we put in those structures in that contract where there's actually going to be some oversight, that's going to be one of the costs that we have to face because we have to monitor it. So when you talk about there's no cost to an outsource, yes there is. There always is a cost to outsourcing. You have to follow up. We didn't because it's not in the contract. That's the problem. But if those things were in there, do you really think Gateway would say, yeah, we want to face those burdens, we'll sign up for another 5 years? Or did they like the contract they got that was written by, I quite frankly don't know who? That's a real problem. But I don't know if they really want to be sticking around. So if they don't stick around because the new contract that they're going to face isn't to their liking, what are we going to do for ambulance service? There was never a plan to fix that. That's what we're doing. That's an important function of doing our due diligence to keep the residents of our city safe. That was overlooked when this was shipped out. And yeah, I sound angry, because when this room was filled with 200 people saying don't do it, there was a lot of anger, because it wasn't the right thing to do. And so now we're left with that hole, and we're trying to fix it. And my last comment that I would like to make, I always find it interesting when someone gets up and wants to talk about bullying, and then threatens my law license. That's an interesting tactic. Not only am I going to tell you you're doing a bad job as a council person, but I want to ruin your livelihood, get you possibly disbarred because of my sunshine law complaint. But he's against bullying. Think about that. And maybe someone might want to request a sunshine request to see how many complaints have been filed with the Attorney General's office and how many have succeeded. I will tell you, as a lawyer, I think I might have a little more experience in reading laws than the people making those complaints, and what has been filed and complained of is really just frivolous. But just think about that. He's going to threaten my law license because he doesn't get what he wants, and we're bullying. Thank you.
Thank you. I hadn't planned on saying anything about this, but to just dovetail on what Councilman McMahon just said about we don't know where the ambulances are. We have the good fortune tonight of having our fire chief and at least one other member of the fire department in this room. And if one of those ambulances is not in this city, you can turn and ask them. They don't know if there's a second one here right now or not. They don't know if there's a second one coming, or rather a third coming in, how far away that's coming from. Is it coming from all that, or is it coming from Florissant? Because we've seen the reports where they have come from Florissant. So thank you for mentioning that. So I also would like to thank the police chief, the fire chief, and the city manager. All of them were involved, and everyone. This last Friday was Washington University's wild event, which I know raises some concern for our neighborhoods, Rosedale Heights and Ames Place. Our police department, when I showed up Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock, I think I saw 4 different cars from our police department. They were going through the neighborhoods. There was also a very good presence from Washington University, both their residential patrols as well as their police officers. So I think that went off from talking with the residents before, during, and after. I think that event went off very well. I've heard that in years past it hasn't gone as well. You know, Councilman Smotherson mentioned Washington University earlier, the issue of taxes and revenue, their tax exempt status and the number of properties they own. In my 5 months now, I said just the other day, the issue that I have probably spent the single most amount of time on, some people would say, oh, well, sure, it was, you know, all the TIF hearings and the redevelopment project. It has actually been on emails, and phone calls, and visits with residents in the First Ward related to the impact that they feel every day from Washington University. And it has really illustrated to me what I think we already know, that this relationship is out of balance. The streets on Kingsbury and less Ames Place, because they have the ability to tow cars since it's a private subdivision, but Kingsbury on the north side in Rosedale Heights has effectively become a commuter parking lot for students and staff. And so through this process, I know the city manager has made it a priority to have a comprehensive parking study for the city. It has never been more clear to me how important that is, having spent as much time as I have over the last several months in Rosedale Heights and Ames Place. It is staggering how many cars are there, and with all of the buildings now that are effectively used as dormitories, and I'll call them that. You know, the profile of a student is very different from the profile of the residents. And it's not to say students aren't bad. Students are great. I was once a student many years ago. And I had a car in school as well. However, our school, I went to Trinity in Hartford, our school didn't encroach into the neighboring neighborhoods the way that Washington University has. And the problem that I've observed, and I know the residents of Ames Place and elsewhere have observed, is that those students, as I said, have a different profile. They have a different routine. So these cars that the students own are typically parked there for much longer periods of time. Whereas the residents, like most of us, we wake up in the morning, go to work, come back 5:30, and we park our car, ideally in front of our homes. That is not the case. And when we have buildings that have three people and 4 people to an apartment, we have no idea how many of those kids have cars. You can get a sense by looking at the number of out-of-state plates that are parked on the residential streets. So it is just so important that we move forward with this comprehensive parking study. And I also will be asking the Traffic Commission to hopefully make recommendations to the city manager on particularly the key hotspots and parking problem areas that will be of particular interest for this study to look closely at. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. As we close out tonight, I'd like to just take a couple of moments. First, I think it shouldn't come as any surprise to anyone in this room or those who are watching the live stream that when you are doing a $200 million development, that you're going to have people who are on different sides of that equation. But I also have to say that this is one of the few times, and again, the dollars are huge, where we have more people from outside our community who now seem to be concerned than we have inside. And I do think when there are questions about who is getting up and speaking and who's not, I think it's kind of just intriguing to sort of look at where are we going with this, meaning that it seems to me that through all of the TIF hearings that we have done, and by the way, we did a lot of them, and we had a lot of people in all of those rooms, and I think we gave everybody as much an opportunity to speak as any TIF in the history of this county, because we made sure that folks had a chance to speak. And now that process is clearly
winding down. Now it's sort of moving into a different phase. But I do think that when we have citizens who get up and speak and have constantly put everybody else under the microscope, it is always surprising to me when they bristle up when in fact people put them under the microscope and ask where and how is this coming from. So I really do want to make sure as we go forward to remind everybody that the city's participation in many of these decisions will probably be coming to a conclusion in the near term. So we'll still have comments, both from people within our community and outside of it, but probably we should hopefully see a lot of this maybe moving off of our agenda maybe by the end of the year. And then we'll probably move into a different phase, not that it's all done. I also want to address a little bit about the Human Relations Commission, since my name has been bandied about quite often. And I want to make sure that people understand the history of this, because as the guy with a lot of silver hair up here, you know, this commission was created without a great deal of forethought. It was abandoned previously because it no longer had a role. It literally was abandoned because it didn't have a role because the law changed. So then the most previous council created this and said it was to address concerns from the public. Well, one of the reasons it hasn't met is because there haven't been concerns from the public. I mean, the most recent concern most of us can remember is asparagus gate and Schnucks. And so to me, that's one of the challenges that we have for a commission when in fact it's supposed to address citizen concerns, and no citizens express their concerns. The other thing I really do want to say to everybody in the room, and that is that I respect everyone who volunteers on our commissions, and in particular those people who serve as the chair. But there is not a chair of any commission who has the authority to say that they're going to no longer have any meetings. It's just not there. So I do hope that as we work through these commissions that we get a little bit of a better understanding about how these things work. And I appreciate the perspective Mr. Hales gave about the survey, because really that was quite bandied about for something that really wasn't much at all. The other thing I would say is that it surprised me within the past month that one citizen has both called me a spineless mayor and a dictator. And I'm totally confused because I'm not sure you can be both, but that's okay and I'm used to that. That is all right. The next thing I would like to say is far more important, and that is if you look around this room, and I am so appreciative of folks in University City, if you look around this room, everybody in this room is not registered to vote. And our elections come up in November, and the last day to register to vote is this coming Wednesday. And we need everybody to be able to go to the polls. I've got two things left. I'd like to congratulate the Gatesworth on their 30th anniversary. The Gatesworth is one of the single largest employers in University City, one of the largest sets of residents, and they've been there for 30 years, and frankly, without virtually any assistance from the city at all, and they have been an incredible addition to our community, so I congratulate the residents, the owners, and the employees. They've been listed as one of the top 10 retirement communities by Forbes magazine on a regular basis, and we're very proud to have them as a part of our community. And finally, as we close out this meeting, I really would like to wish our city manager a happy birthday. Oh. And with that, I would welcome a motion to adjourn. Motion by Ms. Carr, seconded by Mr. McMahon. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Meeting adjourned.